The World Health Organization team investigating coronavirus in the Chinese city of Wuhan, where the virus first emerged, says it's uncovered new information about its possible origins. Peter Benenberek, who led the team in its nearly month-long visit, said the virus could have taken a very long and convoluted path, also involving movements across borders.
All the work that has been done on the virus and trying to identify its origin continue to point towards a natural reservoir of this virus and similar viruses in bat population.
But he added it's unlikely that the bats were in Wuhan. He said they were also looking for Chinese blood samples that could indicate that the virus was circulating earlier than first thought. The team of investigators did rule out the possibility that the virus leaked from a lab, which has been the subject of conspiracy theories.
The findings suggest that the laboratory incident hypothesis is extremely unlikely and to explain the introduction of the virus into the human population.
The team has also identified market vendors selling frozen animal products, including farmed wild animals. They plan to further investigate cold chain transmission. China has pushed the idea that the virus can be transmitted from frozen food and has repeatedly announced findings of coronavirus traces on imported food packaging. Members of the team have sought to rein in expectations for the mission, with one expert saying it would probably take years to fully understand the origins of COVID-19.
A surprise strong showing by indigenous anti-mining activist Yaku Perez in Ecuador's presidential elections race continued to roil the country's sovereign bonds and rattle investors trying to gauge at the progressive candidate's possible policy shift. Leftist Andres Arauz won the first round as mostly expected, but it may not be clear for those whom he will face on April 11th. It could be Perez or centre-right perennial candidate Guillermo Lasso. The 2030 0.5% coupon bond fell 1.5 cents on Tuesday to 42.43 from above 45 going into the election, and the 2040 was down 2.5 cents at 42.45. Ecuador investors have been no strangers to roller coaster bond moves. A few weeks ago, Arauz declared he wanted to tear up a program the outgoing government negotiated with the International Monetary Fund, sending shivers through markets. But in recent days, Arauz sought to soothe investors' frayed nerves, confirming his commitment to the IMF deal. Now investors are bracing for another unknown. Ecuador renegotiated over $17 billion with private creditors last year, and its schedule of private payments is relatively favorable throughout the next president's term. Meanwhile, Arauz said on Tuesday that his allies will become the largest force in Congress after winning 50 seats in Sunday's elections, and said they would block efforts to bolster the central bank's independence. On Monday, President Lenin Moreno's government sent the central bank reform, which is backed by the International Monetary Fund (IMF), to Congress.
Ecuatoriano haya decidido, manifestamos.
Facebook is being sued for losing control of the data of about 1 million users in England and Wales. The alleged failings were revealed in the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where harvested data was used for advertising during elections. Facebook said there was no evidence UK or EU users' data had been transferred to Cambridge Analytica. But the case against the technology giant, expected to last for at least 3 years, will argue a lost control over users' personal data warrants individual compensation. The harvesting of Facebook users' personal information by third-party apps was at the center of the Cambridge Analytica privacy scandal exposed in 2018. Cambridge Analytica's app on Facebook had harvested the data of people who interacted with it and that of friends who had not given consent. And the case is being represented by law firm Housefield on behalf of those Facebook friends. The leader of the coup in Myanmar has made his first TV address seeking to justify the action amid mass protests. Min Aung Hlaing said November's election, won in a landslide by the party of detained elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi, had been unfair. The military has begun to impose restrictions in some areas, including curfews and limits to gatherings. Huge protests were held on Monday for a third day straight, along with a nationwide strike to oppose the coup. The general's speech drew angry oppositions, with images on social media showing people banging pots and pans in protest in front of television screens. The U.S. State Department said on Monday it had tried to meet Ms. Suu Kyi, but its request had been rejected. The U.S. said it stood by the people of Myanmar in their rights to assemble and protest peacefully. General Min Aung Hlaing's speech focused more on the reasons for the coup and less on threats to protesters. He said the Electoral Commission had failed to investigate irregularities over voter lists in the November election and had not allowed fair campaigning. The Commission had said there was no evidence to support claims of widespread fraud. General Min Aung Hlaing, wearing green military uniform, promised new elections and to hand power to the winner. A new reformed election commission would oversee it. He also said his rule would be different from what was effectively a 49-year military grip on power that ended in 2011 and which saw brutal crackdowns in 1988 and 2007. German prosecutors have charged a 100-year-old German man with being an accessory to 3,518 murders committed while he was allegedly a guard at the Sachsenhausen concentration camp during the later half of World War II. According to NDR Public Television, the suspect, who today lives in the northeastern state of Brandenburg, is accused of making a material and intentional contribution to the killings at the camp where 100,000 died. In recent years, prosecutors have brought charges against several elderly former concentration camp overseers, seizing the last opportunity to secure justice for the millions who perished in Nazi Germany's many camps, including Jews, Gypsies, gays, and political prisoners. Last year, 93-year-old Bruno D. was convicted of 5,230 counts of being an accessory to murder, while prosecutors last week charged 95-year-old Irmgard F., secretary of the camp at Stadthof, of being an accessory to 10,000 murders. NDR reported that the man was alleged to have worked at Sachsenhausen between 1942 and 1945. The camp, set up near Berlin in 1936, was notorious for early experiments in the killing of inmates by gas in what became a trial run for the murders of millions in the gas chambers of Auschwitz. Prosecutors and court officials in Neuruppin, where the charges were brought, did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Romance fraud, scamming someone out of money by pretending to want a relationship, has been on the rise during lockdown. According to UK Finance, there was a 20% increase in bank transfer fraud linked to romance scams in 2020 compared to 2019, and £68 million was lost to such scams in 2020, said the UK's Action Fraud, another increase on the previous year. Organizations want people to be vigilant ahead of Valentine's Day. The advice includes online daters should not send any money, allow the other person to access their bank account, transfer money or take out a loan on the other person's behalf. Hand over copies of personal documents such as their passport or driving license. Invest money on the other person's advice. Receive or send parcels on the other person's behalf. Fraudsters may also use fake profile photos. Performing a reverse image search on a search engine can help to show whether a photo has been copied from elsewhere. Contact your bank immediately if you think you have fallen for a scam and report it to Action. British drug maker AstraZeneca said its vaccine developed with the University of Oxford appeared to offer only limited protections against mild disease caused by the South African variant of COVID-19, based on early data from a trial. The study from South Africa's University of the Witwatersrand and Oxford University showed the vaccine had significantly reduced efficacy against the South African variant, according to a Financial Times report published earlier in the day. Among coronavirus variants currently most concerning for scientists and public health experts are the so-called British, South African and Brazilian variants, which appear to spread more swiftly than others. The company said it believed its vaccine could protect against a severe disease, given that the neutralizing antibody activity was equivalent to that of other COVID-19 vaccines that have demonstrated protection against a severe disease. The trial, which involved 2,026 people, of whom half formed the placebo group, has not been peer-reviewed, while thousands of individual changes have arisen as the virus mutates into new variants. Only a tiny minority are likely to be important or change the virus in an appreciable way.
I'd like to try and change, but...
The United Arab Emirates Hope probe is due to enter Mars orbit on Tuesday in the country's first mission to the Red Planet. The probe will orbit the planet and send back data about the atmosphere, aiming to provide a complete picture of the Martian atmosphere for the first time, studying daily and seasonal changes. The Emirates Mars mission had cost $200 million, according to Minister for Advanced Science, Sarah Amiri. The UAE first announced plans for the mission in 2014 and launched a national space program in 2017 to develop local expertise. Its population of 9.4 million, most of whom are foreign workers, lacks the scientific and industrial base of the big space-faring nations. It has an ambitious plan for a Mars settlement by 2117. Hazza al-Mansouri became the first Emirati in space last September when he flew to the International Space Station.